Good afternoon. Distinguished guests all and fellow enthusiasts of the quantum realm, thank you for gathering here today at Mansion House for this remarkable City Quantum Summit. I'm Professor Michael Mainelli. I'm one of the aldermen of the City of London, and I'm just delighted to be here and hopefully to participate. The Lord Mayor sends his regards. He's currently in a tour of the Middle East to Bahrain and Qatar. But he himself sent a special message here today and is in full support, of course, of the amazing organizer behind me, Karina Robinson. Now, to get the obligatory reference out of the way, we all know that quantum computing is like Schrodinger's cat, simultaneously both the future and the present, until we open the box. But I'd like to share just a little bit about my past before we start. Now, well before my time, in 1967, Alan Marshall, an American entrepreneur, gathered a network of people here in London with an interest in what was then called real-time computing. And he formed the Real-Time Club to lobby the then Post, Telegraph and Telephones networks to be available for data transmission. And over half a century later, the Real-Time Club is still going, and I have the honor of being a past chairman. And I look at Karina's quantum efforts today to get similar discussions going in very much the same light. As we discuss things, we build more connections. Now, my quantum journey began in the 1970s with physics at Harvard, but my quantum computing journey began here in London, just a few hundred yards from Mansion House. And while I was conducting aerospace research in the mid-70s, I was exposed, fortuitously, to the last generation of analog computers. We began the changeover to digital guidance systems for missiles back in the mid-70s, and I was privileged to be able to learn both approaches. And thus later, when I was directing Ministry of Defense research here in Britain in the early 1990s, I began to pay more attention to quantum computing than hitherto. And that was largely due to Professor David Deutsch's algorithmic work with Richard Yossa. And my personal realization then in the 90s was that we had returned in many ways to analog computing. Now that said, quantum may just provide a tremendous number of new excuses for IT support departments. A man calls the quantum IT support and claims that his quantum computer isn't working. And quantum IT support response will probably be, have you tried turning it off and on at the same time? So I said my quantum journey began with physics, but the journey here, just a few hundred yards from Mansion House, was in 1995, and that was working with the late Charles T. Ross and the Real-Time Club. We created the European Institute for Quantum Computing here in the City of London, and we succeeded in 1999 in getting the Bank of England to conduct a successful trial of quantum encryption for key distribution. The Institute itself was well before its time, though, and closed in the early 2000s. Now, the history of general computing since the 1940s could be summarized fairly glibly as smaller, cheaper, faster. And casual observers often assume that quantum computing is just another generation of smaller, cheaper, and faster. But we know it's not. It's as if we're upgrading from riding a bicycle to piloting a spaceship. And while qubits are crucial, counting qubits is not a sign of masculinity. Qubits are the divas of the quantum computing world, delicate, elusive, and prone to mood swings. And harnessing qubits is a bit like trying to catch lightning in a bottle while wearing rubber gloves. And we shall talk qubits today, but quantum computing isn't just a step forward in engineering. It's a leap into an entirely new dimension of computation. And as we all know well, with great power comes great responsibility. Quantum computing has the potential to crack even the most robust encryption methods, so it's a bit like giving a teenager the keys to a sports car. Exhilarating, but also a little scary. So as we journey into the quantum frontier today, let's also think about the ethical and security implications that come with this newfound power. And we have our host today, Karina Robinson, to thank for assembling us around this. And just a final thing I'd like to say as we're exploring this new frontier: humor. Humor, like quantum computing, is about unpredictability. And when you're telling a superposition of jokes, you never know which one will get the biggest laugh. So let's explore this new frontier with curiosity, caution, and a good sense of humor. After all, as we venture into this new realm, who knows what other surprises and innovations await. So thank you for your attention, and welcome, and may our quantum journeys be filled with laughter and discovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor-elect. Can I say the Lord Mayor-elect encapsulates, in that body you see walking along, he encapsulates the City Quantum Summit, because this is a man who was talking about quantum way before it was fashionable, and he's also a financier. And that's exactly why we're here, to have a bit of common sense and practicality to do with quantum. He also, this humble abode becomes his in about a month and a half, so it's not a bad place to be living. What's happened in the last year since we've been here in quantum? 3 things. Money's been tight, governments have become more involved, and the science and preparation for a quantum world have advanced apace. Just in the last week, for instance, the Task Force for Preparing Telecom Companies for a Post-Quantum World published its guidelines that are going to have to be followed by a number of telecom companies to be ready for a quantum world. Boeing, for instance, it pulled off the world's first flight test of multiple types of quantum sensors. And Multiverse Computing, who I'm lucky enough to advise, well, I'm not going to tell you what they're going to announce, but it's a groundbreaking announcement to do with AI and quantum, and they'll announce it on their panel after the coffee break. What 3 predictions could one have for the next 12 months? Firstly, funding constraints should ease. We're already seeing green shoots in the financial markets. Rumor has it that there are 2 big fundraisers that are going to happen and were going to be announced over the next couple of months with investors like Microsoft and SoftBank involved. And that's going to give a real boost to the industry and to the promise of quantum. Secondly, we need to tie ourselves to the AI explosion. And I think this is one of the most important things. If you go away from this conference with one thing, that is it. Without quantum, AI is going to use up vast amounts of computing power, while the data sets are too messy and too big. Now, for some reason, there isn't enough attention being paid to this, and there's not enough attention. And the quantum industry is not doing enough PR about how we are crucial to this journey. If a nation falls behind in quantum, it's going to fall behind in AI, and we need to make that point again and again for our funding, for our PR, for the advance of the industry. Thirdly, geopolitics. Export restrictions on deep tech are complex, and finding the balance between supporting cross-border innovation and defense from hostile countries who are involved in the intricacies of all our economies, and you know exactly who I'm talking about. That contradiction is a very difficult one, and it's one that, dare I say it, even, 1 million qubits couldn't solve that problem, the problem of China. Now, there are 3 rules for this summit. Firstly, free for all, and thank you to our 10 sponsors because they allow it to happen. Secondly, gender balance panels. They're all gender balanced except for one, which we've got too many women, but one tries. And the third one is no lingo, no jargon. There's only one person in this room who's allowed to mention superposition other than the Lord Mayor-elect, and that is Marina Landia. I will introduce you to her later. So Marina, we met at a dinner where she said she was an artist who worked at the intersection with technology. And I said, have you done anything on quantum? So the City Quantum Summit commissioned her to do a film on quantum, and this is the world premiere of that film. But what's a film without a musical score? So Ila, who is a musician and a composer, but he studied physics at university and has always been obsessed with quantum, he came up with the score. Now, Marina spoke to 4 well-known quantum names, and what I find is amazing is how she's managed to bring it all together into a 6-minute film called Concurrent Realities. And notice the words coming out of the mouths of the protagonists, because they all come from top quantum physicists. But the other thing is Ila actually worked with AWS's Bracket, and he used a quantum computer. So the music you're hearing is quantum music. Now, there is a madness to quantum. It's a perplexing concept. And it reminds me of that story about Christopher Columbus. When he set out, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. And when he returned, he didn't know where he'd been. Welcome to the global premiere of Concurrent Realities. Lights? I think that was pretty weird and wonderful, just like quantum. And I'd like to ask Marina and Ila to please stand up. They're going to be around today, so please feel free to go and ask questions, feedback, because it is a fascinating concept, being able to use a quantum computer to come up with music, and the way Marina managed to draw all these great minds from quantum in just 6 minutes. May I now please ask for our first panel to come to the stage?